Namaste, thank you for listening to me. This year, I've been on the spiritual path for almost 20 years now, roughly. And I was having a retrospective on my spiritual path. And one thing I noticed was that of these 20 years, the first 17 years were a complete waste. I did not make any spiritual progress. I did not find peace. I did not find joy. And they were a complete waste. And there was even a time, within that 17 years, a 6 or 7 year gap in which I gave up meditation and the spiritual path completely. And I was looking back to see, what happened. Why did I fail those 17 years? In the last 3 years, I've made more progress, spiritual progress and material progress, than in the first 17 years combined. So what did I do wrong in the first 17 years? What lessons could be learned? If I could go back in time to my old self, what would I say? The first thing is, maybe I could say nothing. I needed to suffer a little bit to learn the spiritual lessons I needed. Those 6 or 7 years I wasted, they were like, the ancient prophets, especially in the Abrahamic religions, like Moses, they go out into the desert and they spend years in the desert. They're just wandering the desert and going mad and wild, crazy. So for me, it was like that. Those 7 years I wasted, they were a bit like, my desert. I was wandering the desert, as it were, trying to find myself, trying to find peace. And I gave up meditation, but I couldn't give it up completely. It kept pulling me back. It was a bit like, if you've seen The Godfather 3, he says, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. So the spiritual path, it's a bit like the mafia. You cannot leave it. It always pulls you back. That's what happened to me. The path kept pulling me back. I thought I had given up meditation completely, but I kept, something kept pulling me back, and I kept looking, for better styles, better different techniques, even during that 6 or 7 year, my wandering in the desert. So anyway, I was going back to see what lesson I could learn, and this is the second version of this video. I made the original version. I made an old version in which I had top 3 points. But when I did the video, I realized actually just 1 point. Just one thing I failed completely. And most people in the spiritual path will fail at this one thing. And so I just want to talk about the one thing, the one lesson I learned in my 17 years of meditation. And it's my super secret. I normally charge, 10 payments of $999.99 for this. But just for today, you can have my secret for free. Yeah, for free. And this is my secret. The reason I struggled so much in the first 17 years was because I kept thinking that the spiritual world and the material world are separate. And this is what caused me to waste so much time. Spiritual world, material world, good, bad. I want this, I hate this. And this affected everything I did. It affected my whole thought process. And everybody in the spiritual world, I've gone forums, I talk to people, it's the same crap I hear over and over. Everyone thinks the same thing. And I can bet $1 million that you think the same thing. You think that the material world and the spiritual world are separate. And I'll prove it to you if you want. If you think that money is bad, or the rich people are bad, or if you think that, like me, once you become enlightened, all your problems will go away. Or you think that, people who don't meditate or who spend their time on social media or watching TV are somehow inferior to you. If you have any of these beliefs that, you're better than them because you meditate, this spiritual arrogance, as I call it. Or if you believe that the material world is not good enough, it's low, like I saw this meme on forums where they were saying something like, oh, all these people running after material goods, it won't make them happy. And everybody's like, yeah, 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 material world is bad. I was like, guys, you're in for a surprise. You're in for a shock. I believe the same thing. The material world is evil, and it stopped my progress. The spiritual world and the material world are the same. There's no difference between them. This is the one thing I learned over the last 3 years when I finally started making some progress. You cannot treat the outer world and the inner world separately. The material world is not bad, it's not wicked, it's not evil. It's a reflection of your inner state of mind. If your inner state is messed up, the outer world will also be messed up. The outer world is where we go, to practice what we learn on the meditation couch. Most people, they're so in love with techniques. They want to sit in the couch and meditate for 2 hours, and become more enlightened. I meditate for 2 hours. You need to meditate for 2 hours, or you're not a real yogi. You're not a real meditator. And they're like, which is the best technique? Which is the best technique? And I was like that. I used to get up, like 5 in the morning, I meditate for 2 hours. Then I'd come back from home, work early, and I meditate for 2 hours. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be enlightened soon. Yeah. And spoiler alert, I didn't become enlightened. And I kept thinking, my career started suffering. It went downhill. I didn't get a pay rise for 2 or 3 years. I was a really shitty financial state. And I kept thinking, it doesn't matter, I'll be enlightened soon, so it doesn't matter. All this running after money is for these materialistic type. I'm better than them. I don't need all this. Turns out I wasn't better than them. And I did need to focus on it. And there's a word for it, it's called spiritual bypassing. I was spiritual bypassing. I was thinking that, once I became enlightened, all my problems would be solved. But that's not how it works. You cannot use the spiritual world, spirituality, or meditation as an excuse to hide from yourself. If you have problems in the outer world, in your job, in your relationships, with your girlfriend or boyfriend, with your parents or your children, you need to confront those issues and you need to fix them. They will not go away just because you become enlightened or, you reach nirvana. Ooh. I think this is the one biggest thing, meditation, the biggest myth, that it's the most harmful and corrosive myth. And we keep told this all the time. We have this image of people running off to the Himalayas and meditating in a cave and becoming enlightened. And this is such a bullshit myth and such a crap. And if you look at it, most people who run to the Himalayas don't become enlightened. You can look at any Indian, most of them are druggies, and I'm sure 1 or 2 become enlightened. But most people, if you look at history, most of the people who are famous or who lived a spiritual life, who live a life of who call awakened life, they didn't meditate. They spent their time helping others. Jesus or Guru Nanak or Krishna and hundreds of other people, they were not meditators. They spent their time in the material world helping others because they knew that the spiritual world and the material world are not separate. When Buddha had to run away from the forest, even once Buddha got his nirvana, he came back to the world and he spent his time in the world, because these two things are not separate. And like I said, for me, I kept thinking, oh, one day I'll become enlightened, I want to face these problems. But I did have to face those problems. Meditation is not something you do on a couch. You sit on your arse for 2 hours and you chant Om Shanti Shanti for 2 hours or 10 minutes or whatever, and then you go to work. That's not what meditation is. Meditation is something you do your whole life, your whole day. You do it every single day, every single minute, every single hour. And it might seem hard, but it's not hard. I'll come to this in a second. Because that people are so in love with techniques and with sitting meditation. But sitting meditation is overrated. It's not enough. You need to take your meditation to the road. You need to take it to the outer world. The outer world, the so-called evil materialistic world, with full of materialistic people, it'll show you where you're failing. It'll show you where you need to work. It'll show you, where because where you're failing, because in fact we are all divine beings. One of the things I learned 3 years ago, when finally started clicking together. One of the things I learned from experience, from spiritual experience, was that our true state is one of joy and peace. And if you don't have joy and peace, something has gone wrong. And that something that has gone wrong is usually inside of us. It's not outside. So we need to find out what has gone wrong, and we need to fix it. And the problems are usually always inside of us. The outer world the world that we see, many philosophies say that it's an illusion or it's a dream. And it's not a literal dream. It's not literally a dream. My understanding is, and I base this on a course in miracles, is that the world we see, we don't see the actual world. We see a reflection of the world. We're always wearing glasses. This glasses are usually shit covered, or they can be rose colored, and we are not seeing the real world. We are seeing a reflection of the world filtered through our mind. So the material world, the problems that we face in the material world, especially ones that come up again and again and again, like if you always find crappy jobs, or if you always find crappy relationships, or if you're always struggling to have a good bank balance, it might be because of inner beliefs, problems inside of you. The material world, outer world, it'll show you very clearly, like a mirror. It's like a mirror. It'll show you what's wrong inside of you, so you can work on it. Yeah. And spiritual people, they're like, oh, these people are so materialistic. They think that they're better than other people. And in this arrogance, they're missing, the big secret, the big gift that the material world has for us. She's showing us, because the world that we see outside, it's a reflection of us inside. And I'll give you an example of this. When I was in this dark place, 6 or 7 years that I spent in the desert, as it were, at that time, everything in my life was going wrong. My boss was an asshole. Would give me permission, give me a promotion for many years. The landlord was jerk. They made unnecessary charges. It took hundreds of pounds from our deposit. And as soon as I cleared up the inner shit, I met a great boss, one of the best bosses I've had. And even though we have changed companies, I still respect him. I met a great landlord who went out of his way to, help us. We'd call him, there's a problem, and within 10 minutes, he'd just drive down, and he used to live near us, fix the problem. Even though we said it's not an emergency, come when you want. But he was so nice, he went out of his way to help us. So, as soon as I changed the inner shit, the outer world automatically changed. And that's not to say, that if you start meditating, everything will be puppies, little puppies and unicorns. Yeah, everything is fine. You'll still have shit. You'll still have problems in life. But the fact is that, problems that come up again and again, and 90% of our problems are caused by our bad thinking. And if you fix our thinking patterns, because we see patterns, right? Like my pattern was that all my bosses treated me with contempt. And I realized that because I was treating myself with contempt, they were just reflecting. The outer world was reflecting what I was doing to myself. Because I treated myself as shit. I was full of self-loathing. That's how the outer world treated me. That's how, I'm sure those people, they were good. They were just reflecting the way I was treating myself. So these patterns that come up again and again, they will come up in the outer world. They're reflections of what's happening inside. That's when I say it's not enough to just sit and meditate for like 1 or 2 hours. People become so focused, on every forum they say, how long should I meditate for? And the answer is 1 hour at least. And I'm like, no, you need to just meditate for 2 minutes. I was like, no, that won't work. You need to meditate for 1 hour. Like I said, I tried that. I tried meditating for 2 hours, 4 hours a day. I tried all this crap that we are told we should do. Practice brahmacharya, eat a healthy vegetarian diet, and all that crap. And none of that crap worked. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's overrated. I was getting too focused on the outer purity and looking pure and acting all spiritual. I'm a spiritual person, not like these greedy materialists. Yeah, this spiritual arrogance that we're better than them because we're meditating. And it comes from the fact that we think that the spiritual world and the material world are separate. So in practice, how do you do that? You need to take your meditation to the road. It's just sitting, no matter how long you sit, that's not enough. Even if you sit for 2 hours a day, that's still, 12 or 15 hours you're not meditating, because we sleep for 8 hours, 2 or 3 hours for eating, brush, all that stuff. So we still have 12 to 15 hours a day, right? So if you're meditating for 2 hours a day, that's still, another 13, 14 hours you're not meditating. So meditation is not something you do now and then. It's not like, when you're meditating, you're all like, oh, I'm peaceful, I'm the Brahm, I'm joy. And as soon as you leave the meditation cushion and you're driving, somebody cuts you off, you're like, get out of my way, get out of my way. Yeah, you're giving the finger. Or you're at your boss, you're like, he's an asshole, I hate him, I should die. You can't have that. Your meditation needs to be, your whole life needs to be meditation. And this might sound hard, but it's not hard. It's quite easy, as I'll come to it. You need to take your meditation to the road. And how do you do that? The way it started for me was, I remember I told you, the first 17 years were completely wasted. And in the 17 years, the last 6 or 7 years, I gave up completely. I was in a desert. I was hopeless and miserable. But I didn't know what to do. And then I found the path by suffering. Suffering is our teacher, unfortunately. Most of us will only make spiritual progress through suffering. That's what happened to me. Because in moments of extreme suffering, the ego just dies. Temporarily, it comes back, but for a short time, it just dies. And that's when I realized, that I realized most of my problems were self-created. That it was my own thinking patterns that were causing my problems. I thought I could escape myself. I could jump over my own self and jump into enlightenment and all my problems fixed. Yeah, but it didn't work that way. I couldn't jump over my problems. I couldn't escape my problems. I had to face my problems. The material world, when my job was crap and I didn't have any money, the material world was showing me where I needed to work, and I was trying to hide from that. I was scared of the world, and I couldn't hide from it. It came and grabbed me anyway. One thing I realized was, based on my own experience, that people who fail in the material world will also fail in the spiritual world. Okay, this is going to sound harsh, but if you're a failure in the material world, you're going to be a failure in the spiritual world. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be a millionaire businessman running a $1 million company working 90-hour weeks. I'm not saying that. And I point this out because somebody's going to interpret it like this. What I'm saying is that in your material world, you must be satisfied. You must have a job you're satisfied with. You must have relationships you're satisfied with. They won't be perfect, I understand that. Crap will happen. You might get laid off because the company is in a bad situation. Your people you love might die or might fall sick. That's fine. But overall, you must be satisfied with your life, in your material life. If you fail in your material life, you will fail in your spiritual life, and vice versa. If you're a success in your spiritual life, you'll also be a success in your material life. Why? Because you know the secret. There's the same thing. Spiritual life and material life is the same thing. There's no difference between them. Like yin and yang, they're closely entwined. Yeah, they're the yin and yang of life. You can't escape from the material life and jump into the spiritual life. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. And, so I kept thinking, oh, money is evil, money is evil. And I saw had none. And it was really hard to meditate because I was always thinking about money. And this is where, most spiritual people, they have a negative attraction to wealth and sex. What do I mean by that? Materialistic people, they're like, money is good, I want money, I want more money. They're running towards money. Spiritual people are like, money is evil, they're running away from money. Yeah. But in both the cases, spiritual people and material world people, they're obsessed with money. And, the spiritual people have a negative attraction to wealth. And the so-called materialistic people have a positive attraction to wealth. But both of them are not living a balanced life. They're out of balance. And because of this negative attraction to wealth and sex, another thing, most spiritual people, they do not make as much progress as they should. Real spirituality is accepting the world as is, as it is. It's You don't judge it, you don't try to hide from it, you don't try to fight it. And if you have a belief that certain things in the material world are bad, like money, and 90% of the spiritual people think that, you know, they'll go and say, oh, they're so evil, they're driving a big car or not meditating. Or if you think that material world is evil, you're rejecting a part of the world. Like I said, the outer world is a reflection of the inner world. So if you reject something outside, you're rejecting something inside of you, and vice versa. And this comes and bites you in the ass. You can't run away from your problems. You have to face them. So I say that you have to take your meditation to the road. It's not something you sit. You have to do it all the time. Remember I told you 3 years ago I had this big jump, this big boost in my meditation. And what happened at that time was I was still in the desert, so I was still wandering my desert. But I decided to try something new. I don't know why I just started. It happened naturally. I now know that my higher self was guiding me. But at that time I didn't know of that. So I started just practicing awareness throughout the day. I would go to work, I would practice. I would drive to work, I'd take a deep breath. I think I heard Eckhart Tolle. I had Eckhart Tolle's CD and book for like 5 years. I hadn't read it. And then I had some bad times and I listened to it. I was like, wow. And Eckhart recommends practicing awareness throughout the day. So that's what I started doing. I would drive to work, take a few conscious breaths. I'll reach work. I wouldn't just start typing on my computer. I would take a few deep breaths. Lunch break, I'd walk consciously to work. When I came home, I'd sit in the car, take a few conscious breaths. Get out of the car, and when I reach home, stop the car, take a few conscious breaths. And I did it for 2 or 3 months. And in those 2 or 3 months, my whole life changed. Just a few conscious breaths, they were enough. Because I started taking my meditation to the road. I was just something I'm doing at home. At that time, I wasn't meditating at all. I was just taking conscious breaths just because it helped me relax. So it just helped me accept what was. And that small thing changed my whole life. So you have to take your meditation to the road. Your whole life has to be a meditation. The saying in India, your whole life is a sadhana. Sadhana means a spiritual, not struggle, a spiritual sort of work, spiritual journey. Your whole life is a meditation. It's not something you do now and then. You don't, now I'm sitting meditating, I'm in spiritual mode. And then you turn the spiritual mode off. Cut. Then you went to the material world. Now I am materialistic. Spiritual mode is off. I will go in the material world, make money. You can't do that. You can't have a gap between them. Your whole life, your spiritual life and the material life are the same thing. They need to be treated as one because they are one. So let me give you a practical technique of this. One was I started being aware of throughout the day. The other thing I did that really helped me was I started carrying a journal with me. Just a notebook at all times. And every time I felt angry or irritated or frustrated or whatever, I would write down, why am I feeling this way? Because one of the things I had in my spiritual experiences was that one of the things I learned in my experience is that our true self, our higher self is a being of joy and peace. And if you're not feeling joy and peace, something has gone wrong. And that something has always to do with how we are thinking. It's something to do with a belief or a thinking pattern inside of us. It's never something outside. So I took a journal. Every time I felt depressed, I would say, why am I angry? Why am I angry? Why am I depressed? Why am I feeling low? And the answer was always something inside of me, never something outside. Just to give you a small example, it was like 4 o'clock, 4:30, almost time to come home. And I was in a meeting, and somebody said something nasty to me. They didn't say it consciously, just said it. But it really made me angry. I was like, really pissed off. So angry, I didn't know what to do. So I took my journal and I just walked out of the office. And I went to my car. I sat down in my car and I started writing, why am I angry? Why am I so angry? And the shallow answer was, because that person insulted me. And I was like, so he can say whatever the hell he wants. It's a free country. It's his mouth or her mouth. I can't remember. His or her. It's their mouth. They can say whatever the hell they want. And I kept writing. So why am I angry? Because they insulted me. So because they don't respect me. I was like, so I think so. I took a good half an hour break, and I kept writing. Why am I angry? Why am I? I kept asking myself, why am I angry? Why am I angry? Why am I angry? When I finally hit the answer, it was like being punched in the stomach or punched in the heart. Because when I got the answer, it was like so. I just stopped immediately what I was doing. I had to stop. The final answer that I got was because the world is a cold, and it was my inner self, my subconscious writing. Because I just write. I wouldn't think, just write. It's a form of journaling where you let your subconscious talk to you. So just writing. I wasn't thinking, just writing. And the inner self was saying, because the world is a cold and cruel place, and I'm going to die all alone and helpless, and there's no love here. And I get a little bit of respect at work. That's what keeps me going. And now they're even taking that away from me. So I'm just going to die anytime. I'm going to die in this cruel world. That was what my subconscious told me. And it was like, like I said, it was like punch in the stomach. It was so shocking to me. Because I didn't know I had these beliefs inside of me. When somebody insulted me, I thought, oh, that asshole, it's his fault. But actually, it was my fault, because there was something inside of me, a part of me, that was reacting, I had this limiting and wrong belief that the world is a cruel place. So this is what I mean by you have to take your meditation to the road. You have to constantly watch your thoughts and your the feelings rising inside of you. It's not just something you do on the couch. Some people say that if you watch your negative thoughts, they just go away. But that didn't work for me at all. I find that negative thoughts, negative thinking patterns, they're like bullies. They're like bullies in your house who come in and slap you around. Just watching them doesn't work. You have to actually actively fight them. You have to say, get out of my house. Get out of my mind. By letting these negative thinking patterns stay in your head, it's like letting a bully sit in your house and slap you around. It's not going to just go away just because you watch it. No, it won't. It didn't work for me. I'm sure it worked for some people. It didn't work for me at all. So meditation is something you do throughout the day. Not just when you're sitting on the couch. It's something you do when you're at work, when you're in a meeting, when you're eating, when you're with your boss, when you're with your husband or wife, when you're walking on the road, when you're driving. It's something you do all the time. And if you're just meditating to become a mind control master, yeah, that's fine. You do what you want. If you're meditating to find peace, then it's something you need to do all the time. It's your whole life is like that. You're watching yourself. I was completely watching myself, but where am I going wrong? Where am I failing? And I'll just give you one example. I did this like hundreds of times over the last 2 or 3 years. And each time I was surprised by the negative beliefs I had. And these negative beliefs were stopping, the light of my higher self from helping me in the world. So that's what meditation is. It's, again, like I said, the material world and the spiritual world are not different. I could have said that when somebody insulted me at work, I could have said, oh, these people, they're all jerks. But that would have been creating a division between that world and this world, the physical world and the material world. But it's the material world and the spiritual world. But there's no division between them. They're the same. That's what I've learned now. You have to treat everything is interconnected. Everything is joined. And meditation is the process of, fixing your thinking patterns, your mind. If you fix your inner self, inner crap, the outer world improves itself automatically. Not immediately, and not everything will be fine, but the patterns that control your life. Like for me, it was being stuck in a dead-end job, having no money. That was a pattern, and that pattern fixed itself once I fixed my inner thinking. And there are usually 2 or 3 different patterns most people have. It's self-loathing, self-hate, and people get stuck in those. And they come out in the form of problems in the career or problems in relationships. So you might be thinking, okay, this is very hard. Being aware throughout the day and carrying a journal is too hard. This is a secret. This is a bonus. I'm giving you a bonus because you paid me 10 payments of 999. This is a bonus. Once you start on the path, the universe starts helping you. And by universe, I don't mean some god who sits in the sky with a beard, looking down at you from above. I mean your own higher self, your own divine self, your own Buddha nature. It starts helping you. There's a whole universal intelligence that wants us to succeed. And our problem is that we are stuck in this, in our own head. We are so stuck up here that we cannot access the bigger intelligence, the bigger divine consciousness. We cannot reach it at all. Our own higher self is trying to talk to us and help us. But, it's like, you're at a football match and everybody's screaming, or you're at a rock concert, everybody's screaming, ah! And your thoughts are like they're screaming all the time. And your higher self is just, some guy standing in the corner whispering, dude, you need to do this to be happy. But you can't listen to it because you've got all these screaming thoughts in your head. So meditation is a process of calming those thoughts down so you can listen to your higher self. That's what I found. The 3 years ago when I said I started making progress, that's when I started listening to my higher self. And so I started listening, I shut off all the other thoughts, either in sitting meditation or in journaling. I talk to my higher self and say, what do I do next? Please guide me, what's my next step? And like all the things I've told you, it might look very hard, but it's actually quite easy because, the guidance I got was, for every step you take, the universe will take 1,000 steps. We take one step, the universe takes 1,000. But if we don't take that one step, the universe cannot help us. We do have to take that one step. And that one step can be very scary, depending on where you are. Even doing anything might be scary. But you do have to take the one step, and then you have to trust that, your own higher self, the universal intelligence, will carry you the rest of the way. It wants to help us. It's dying to help us, but it cannot help us because we can't listen. We are deaf. We are so stuck in our heads, we can't listen to the universal guidance trying to get us out of our own misery. So the thing that I've told you, it might seem hard, but it's actually quite easy once you accept that you're just a small part. Your role in this is very small. Trust the higher self, trust your higher guidance. And this is as simple as saying, please guide me. What should my next step be? What should my what do I do next? My laptop's battery is dying, so I'm going to stop here. I could go for another 45 minutes. Thank you for listening to me. If you got this far, if you listened to this far, that means your higher self guided you towards this. Because you could have been watching YouTube videos, or you could be watching funny cat videos, or you could have been watching naughty videos. But you chose that time to listen to this, so thank you very much. It means that it was your guidance. Your higher self is guiding you. You just need to have faith in your higher self and let it guide you. Don't try to control everything. Let the higher self guide you, and it knows what to do. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful you listened to me. Thank you. I'm grateful. Namaste.